January 3, 2020. A convoy leaves Baghdad International Airport just after midnight. Inside sits one of the most powerful men in the Middle East, a general who built armies in the shadows, a man both Washington and Tel Aviv had hunted for decades. Within minutes, a Reaper drone fires. The vehicle erupts in flames. Major General Qasem Soleimani is dead. But this assassination wasn't random violence. It was the boiling point of a conflict that began 70 years earlier with a CIA-backed coup, a stolen democracy, and a revolution fueled by rage. A conflict where former allies became sworn enemies, where billion-dollar secret weapons deals were made in the dark, where a single handshake could have changed everything. This is the story of how America and Iran went from partners to the brink of war. The war between Iran and the United States isn't fought on a single battlefield. It's waged in the shadows, through assassinations, cyber warfare, economic strangulation, and proxy militias that turn entire regions into war zones. It's a conflict that has claimed over 1 million lives, toppled governments, and brought the world to the brink of nuclear catastrophe multiple times. But to understand why these two nations hate each other with such intensity, you have to go back to 1953, to a covert operation that shattered Iran's first democracy and planted the seeds of a revolution that would consume everything. This is the story of Operation Ajax, the Iran hostage crisis, the 8-year war in which America armed Saddam Hussein as he gassed Iranian soldiers. The axis of evil speech made diplomacy impossible. The nuclear deal that promised peace then collapsed. And the 12 days in 2025 when Iran and Israel finally went to open war, with America's fingerprints all over the wreckage. What you're about to hear isn't just history. It's a blueprint for how superpowers destroy nations, how revolutions are born from betrayal, and how a single coup can echo for generations. 1951. Iran makes a decision that will change everything. Prime Minister Mohammad Mossadegh, a nationalist hero elected by the people, nationalizes Iran's oil industry. For decades, the Anglo-Iranian Oil Company, controlled by Britain, had been draining Iran's most valuable resource while giving almost nothing back to the Iranian people. Mossadegh says enough. Iran's oil belongs to Iran. Britain is furious. They lose their cash cow overnight. But they can't just invade. Not after World War II, not with the world watching. So they turn to America for help. And they know exactly what to say. Mossadegh is weak. Iran is unstable. The communists are coming. It's the Cold War. The mere mention of communism is enough. President Eisenhower gives the green light. The CIA launches Operation Ajax, one of the first covert regime change operations in history. Kermit Roosevelt Jr., grandson of Teddy Roosevelt, runs the show from Tehran. The operation is surgical and brutal. CIA agents bribe Iranian military officers, pay off politicians, and hire local mobsters to flood the streets with fake protests. They spread propaganda claiming Mossadegh is a communist puppet. They turn the people against their own leader. On August 19, 1953, the coup succeeded. Mossadegh is arrested. The Shah, Mohammad Reza Pahlavi, returns from exile as an absolute monarch, fully backed by Washington. Iran's democracy dies in a single day, and America's fingerprints are all over the murder weapon. For the next 26 years, the Shah ruled with an iron fist. His secret police, SAVAK, torture dissidents, crush opposition, and disappear anyone who challenges the regime. And through it all, America supports him. Weapons, money, training. The US calls Iran a pillar of stability. But the Iranian people see something else. A dictator propped up by a foreign power that stole their future. The resentment festers, it grows, and in 1979, it exploded. By the late 1970s, Iran was a powder keg. The Shah's brutal crackdowns, the growing wealth gap, The sense that Iran has sold its soul to the West. Protests erupt across the country. Millions take to the streets. Workers go on strike. The oil industry shuts down. The country is paralyzed. And from exile in France, a 76-year-old cleric named Ayatollah Ruhollah Khomeini becomes the voice of the revolution. His message is simple and devastating. The Shah is a puppet. America is the enemy. Islam is the answer. In January 1979, the Shah fled Iran. He'll never return. On February 1st, Khomeini landed in Tehran to a crowd of millions. The Islamic Revolution has won. And the new government has one clear enemy: the United States of America. The revolutionaries called the U.S. the Great Satan. The power that destroyed their democracy, installed a dictator, and bled their country dry. And they're about to make America pay. November 4th, 1979. A group of Iranian students stormed the U.S. Embassy in Tehran. They take 66 Americans hostage. Their demand? Return the Shah to Iran to stand trial. At first, Iran's provisional government condemns the takeover. But Ayatollah Khomeini sees an opportunity. He endorses the students. The hostages become pawns in a much larger game. For 444 days, America has been held hostage. Every night, the crisis dominates the news. President Jimmy Carter tries negotiations. Nothing works. In April 1980, he ordered a rescue mission, Operation Eagle Claw. It's a disaster. Helicopters malfunction in the Iranian desert. A collision kills 8 American servicemen. The mission is aborted. America's humiliation is complete. The hostages are finally released on January 20th, 1981, the day Ronald Reagan is inaugurated. But the damage is done. Diplomatic relations are severed. Sanctions are imposed. The two nations are now sworn enemies. And then, the bloodiest chapter begins. September 1980. Saddam Hussein's Iraq invades Iran, sensing weakness after the revolution. What follows is 8 years of slaughter. Trench warfare, chemical weapons, human wave attacks. Over 1 million people die, and the United States picks a side: Iraq. Washington provides Saddam with satellite intelligence, helping Iraqi forces target Iranian troops. They supply dual-use technology. They turn a blind eye when Iraq uses chemical weapons, sarin gas, mustard gas, against Iranian soldiers and even civilians. Declassified CIA documents later reveal the extent of this support. In 1983, Donald Rumsfeld, serving as a special envoy, meets with Saddam Hussein. They shake hands. America and Iraq are partners. For Iran, this is the ultimate betrayal. America helped the man who gassed their children. The war ended in 1988 in a bloody stalemate. But the scars never heal. And just weeks before the ceasefire, another tragedy strikes. The USS Vincennes, a U.S. Navy cruiser, is patrolling the Persian Gulf. Tensions are sky high. Suddenly, radar picks up an aircraft. The crew believes it's an Iranian F-14 fighter jet coming to attack. They fire 2 missiles. It's not a fighter jet. It's Iran Air Flight 655, a civilian Airbus A300 on a routine flight to Dubai. All 290 passengers are killed. 66 of them are children. The U.S. expresses regret, but never apologizes. They claim it was a tragic mistake made in self-defense. They even award medals to the Vincennes crew. For Iranians, it's not a mistake. It's murder. Another reason to never trust America. Fast forward to 2002. President George W. Bush delivers his State of the Union address. He names Iran, Iraq, and North Korea as the axis of evil, rogue states seeking weapons of mass destruction. Iran's nuclear program becomes the new flashpoint. The U.S. and its allies accuse Iran of building a bomb. Iran insists it's for peaceful energy. Neither side trusts the other. Years of sanctions cripple Iran's economy. Finally, in 2015, a breakthrough: the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, the Iran nuclear deal. Iran agrees to limit its nuclear program. The world lifts sanctions. For a moment, peace seems possible. But in 2018, President Donald Trump withdrew from the deal. He calls it the worst deal ever. Sanctions slam back into place. Iran's economy collapses. And Tehran responds by restarting its nuclear program, enriching uranium beyond the deal's limits. The window for diplomacy slams shut. Which brings us back to Baghdad. Qasem Soleimani isn't just a general. He's the architect of Iran's entire regional strategy. He built Hezbollah in Lebanon. He propped up Assad in Syria. He commanded militias in Iraq. He's responsible for the deaths of hundreds of American soldiers during the Iraq War. The U.S. claims Soleimani is planning imminent attacks on American personnel. On Trump's orders, a drone strike kills him instantly. Iran erupts in grief and rage. Millions flood the streets for his funeral. Supreme Leader Khamenei vows severe revenge. 5 days later, Iran fires a barrage of ballistic missiles at 2 Iraqi bases hosting U.S. troops. It's the first time Iran has directly attacked American forces with its own missiles from its own territory. Over 100 U.S. soldiers suffer traumatic brain injuries. The world teeters on the edge of war, but both sides pull back, barely. Then, in the chaos, Iran's air defenses accidentally shoot down a Ukrainian passenger jet, killing 176 people. Iran initially denies it, then admits the horrific mistake. The regime is humiliated at home and abroad. For years, Iran and Israel fought through proxies. But in April 2024, everything changes. Israel strikes the Iranian consulate in Damascus, killing senior Iranian commanders. Iran retaliates by launching over 300 drones and missiles directly at Israel from Iranian soil, the first time. Damage is minimal, but a line has been crossed. Then, in June 2025, it erupts into full-scale war. Israel launches a massive preemptive strike, Operation 12 Days. The targets: Iran's nuclear facilities, missile bases, air defenses. The U.S. provides intelligence, refueling, and missile defense support. For 12 days, the region burns. Israel claims it set Iran's nuclear program back by years. Iran fires ballistic missiles at Israeli cities, but most are intercepted. On June 24th, a ceasefire takes hold. Iran's military is exposed as weaker than believed. Its nuclear infrastructure is damaged. Its proxies are battered. And inside Iran, protests explode. The people are tired. The economy is in ruins. The government has failed to protect them. Here's what they don't tell you on the news. Iran is collapsing from within. By January 2026, the protests that started after the 12-day war had transformed into something the regime couldn't control. It's no longer just about the economy. People are chanting against the supreme leader, against the Revolutionary Guards, against the entire system. The government responds with violence, mass arrests, internet blackouts, live ammunition against unarmed protesters. But this time it's different. The security forces are exhausted. Some are even refusing orders. The regime's iron grip is slipping. And Donald Trump, back in the White House, sees an opportunity. He reinstates maximum pressure sanctions, harder than ever before. He increases the U.S. military presence in the Gulf. He issues public warnings to Tehran about the treatment of protesters, a move that enrages the Iranian leadership, but emboldens the demonstrators. Iran is now facing enemies on every front. Iran still has options. Its nuclear program, despite the damage, isn't destroyed. Intelligence agencies across the world are asking the same question. What happens when a revolutionary regime faces extinction? Does it negotiate? Does it collapse? Or does it lash out in one final catastrophic act? Because there's a pattern in history. Desperate powers don't surrender quietly. And Iran has spent 70 years preparing for this moment when the great Satan comes for its throat. The circle of fire isn't ending. It's entering its most dangerous phase yet. And nobody knows how this story ends, only that when it does, the entire Middle East might burn with it. So here we are, 70 years after a CIA coup destroyed Iran's democracy, 45 years after a revolution turned an ally into an enemy, 4 decades after America armed the man who gassed Iranian civilians, 2 decades after the axis of evil speech, peace is impossible, and just months after a 12-day war that may have been the beginning of something far worse. The conflict between Iran and the United States isn't just a geopolitical rivalry. It's a blood feud built on betrayal, revenge, and decades of miscalculation. Both sides believe they're the victim. Both sides believe they're fighting for survival. And both sides have the power to drag the world into a war that no one can win. The question isn't whether this conflict will escalate again, it's when, and how catastrophic it will be. Will Iran's government collapse from within, torn apart by its own people? Will it make a desperate dash for nuclear weapons as a final act of defiance? Will Israel launch another preemptive strike? Will the United States invade? Or will both nations somehow find a way to step back from the abyss? History shows us that cycles of revenge rarely end on their own. They consume everything until there's nothing left to burn. What do you think happens next? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And if this story opened your eyes to a conflict most people don't fully understand, share it with someone who needs to see it. Because the circle of fire is still burning, and we're all standing too close to the flames.